Welcome to the Right Hand Roadmap, the podcast for seconds in command of founder-led companies. I'm your host, Megan Long, owner of Second First. In each episode, we show you the path to success on your journey as the #2 leader in entrepreneurial companies. I am so happy you are here. It's that time again. Each quarter, we do a question and answer episode answering listener submitted questions. So just to catch you up, you have a few options to submit a question for the next episode like this. You can visit secondfirst.com/podcast, and there's a submission box. You also can email your question to podcast@secondfirst.com. So if your question is chosen for a podcast Q&A episode, it'll be read anonymously. If your question is not chosen, we still reply to them all privately with our advice or suggested resources. And then you all know the drill. I do have to give a disclaimer that this episode is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal advice or professional advice. And we're not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that arise from the use of this podcast, and the views expressed in the episode may not be those of the host or management. All right, let's dig in to the first question. My company self-implemented EOS in 2022. We have great KPIs and a scorecard in place for our team, but as the integrator, I'm having a hard time measuring my own success. I'm accountable for profit and LMA, the leadership team, but day to day, I feel a little aimless. There's nothing for me to point to and say, look, I'm killing it. Do you have any suggestions? Okay, so if you're not familiar with EOS, there are a variety of different, what they call business operating systems. So EOS, or the entrepreneurial operating system, comes from the book Traction, and it's considered one of these business operating systems. You know, there's Scaling Up, there's EOS, there's now Pinnacle, like there's a variety of different OSs, quote unquote, for your business, and EOS is extremely popular. The second in command of EOS companies is called the Integrator. And then the last glossary term for you, they said LMA, which stands for Lead, Manage, and Hold Accountable. So when they say LMA, the leadership team, that means they are the leader holding the leadership team accountable. So when you say that as the second in command or as the integrator, you struggle measuring your own success, I get it. There's no playbook for your role, and there's a lot of supporting others. For you, rather than focusing on one weekly number, which is going to be really difficult, I would suggest shifting your focus to the business plan. Your sense of progress and accomplishments are going to be in chipping away at that business plan, accomplishing rocks, and moving the business forward. The work itself will often be done by others. So don't fall into the trap of feeling like, I'm not doing anything. You are. You're creating collaboration across the organization. You're communicating the vision across the organization. You're resolving cross-departmental issues. You're removing obstacles. There's so much value in that work. Those are all your superpowers. And the easiest way to measure progress is to break down your rocks or your business plan into very measurable milestones throughout the year, quarter, or month. It's also really easy to lose track of accomplishments throughout the year because you're so busy. So I always recommend keeping a brag list just for you. Whenever you accomplish something, increase profit, find savings, list it, add it to a list that you keep. It's really helpful for any end of year discussions with your CEO. They don't always have a rear view mirror because they're so forward focused. So for you to keep that list, those are great reminders to help you and help them kind of remind each other of your accomplishments. All right, question number 2. I'm a CEO hiring for a second in command. I thought I had my person on the team, but over time I'm realizing they are not the fit for me. Do you have any advice as I begin my search? Okay, so this is actually going to be great timing. This episode comes out on, hold on, let me double check this, November 26th. Okay, so The following Friday from when this episode comes out, which is December 6th at 11:30 a.m. Central, I'm holding a webinar just for entrepreneurs ready for that step. By the end of this workshop that I am hosting, attendees will have clarity around identifying, hiring, and onboarding the second in command that complements their own strengths and supports their business's objectives. So it's 60 minutes, December 6th, 11:30. I highly recommend you registering at secondverse.com/hiring. There are a few recommendations that I can make right off the bat though. In the initial interview, check for culture and core values first. So check for the behavioral traits you want and make sure that they only want to work in the areas of the business that you do not want to work in. So I have a whole list of sample questions for this, but that's the general idea. Second is share your long-term vision with the candidate. Is that something that they can see themselves to be a part of? Do they get excited about helping you achieve this vision? If there's any hesitancy, then it might not be a good fit. Third is when it comes to assessing skill set, this might be a portion of the interview that you pull someone else from your team in or a third party. As the CEO, you're hiring someone to essentially fill the gaps that aren't your strengths. So unless you're 100% confident that you have the aptitude to make that assessment, it's helpful to pull in additional help. And CEOs, especially visionary entrepreneurs, really risk hiring someone purely because of likability and culture versus skills. So really check yourself and ask yourself, do I want to hire this person because I like them, or do I want to hire this person because they will help me get where I want to go? And finally, if you feel comfortable with the candidate, I recommend including an interview with this person's direct reports. So if they will have any people reporting directly to them, allow them to ask questions of their potential boss and then give you feedback. That's interviewing. In the webinar, I'm also going to provide a template for a 90-day onboarding plan for a second in command hire. So again, secondverse.com/hiring. And then third question, what is your top recommended tool, app, or piece of software? This is a really tough. Okay, I'll share something that has been a recent project at Second First. We're going to be onboarding some new roles in Q1. So to prepare, I knew that we needed more SOPs and documentation. Things that honestly live in my brain or, my personal OneNote that needed a proper home. We're a Microsoft company, and I'm also sensitive to app sprawl. I know that if there are too many things to log into, they'll just grow stagnant and no one will ever use them. I have friends that swear by Asana, but we use Microsoft Planner because that's within our ecosystem. That's a good example. Well, I've always had admiration for Notion. I think the interface is really pretty, like it's very aesthetically pleasing. I love the templates, and I think it's perfect to create this internal ecosystem of documentation, different team hubs, really anything that you need to use it for, except I didn't want to introduce another application into our workflow. Well, Microsoft created their own version, Microsoft Loop. It's not 100% there yet. It's about 1 year old, but they are actively developing it to continue to be competitive with Notion, and they have all the money of Microsoft behind it. So I am fully confident it'll probably pass up Notion at some point soon. They have pre-built templates. They're also really receptive to feedback and feature ads. So it has been great to build out, to link to documentation, capture processes, and link any assets that these new roles will need. I can really put together this full onboarding for them. I'll link the blog post about it, but yeah, Loop has been really fun for us to build out. All right, guys, that's it. Little shorty Q&A. Like I said, you can email questions to podcast@secondverse.com or visit secondverse.com/podcast to have us answer yours next time. To find show notes and links to anything mentioned in this episode, visit secondfirst.com/32. Be sure to subscribe to catch future episodes and leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Remember, you don't have to navigate being a second in command alone when you have the right hand roadmap.